Hi there, it's Tiffany from Daisy Farm Crafts, and today I'm going to show you a tutorial for my velvet buffalo check gingham blanket. It is so soft and cuddly. Anyway, we're just going to do a quick tutorial and I'm going to show you how to do the stitch and everything. So let's get started. Okay, first let's talk about what I'm using, and this is Bernat Velvet from yarnspirations.com. It is hand wash only. This is different than baby velvet. So it's a little bit thicker. It's a bulky 5 weight and recommends a K, but I have jumped down to a J for this blanket, which is a 6mm hook, simply because I want my stitches to be fairly tight, and that helps me hide the yarn a little bit better. I'm using 4 colors. So here's my 4 colors. I kind of have them ready. This is called Vapor Gray, and I use black. I've got the white, and this is Misty Gray. It's very important to arrange these colors appropriately. Let me show you in the blanket in order to get that gingham, the buffalo check look. Okay, what you're going to want to do is make sure you alternate in the row this vapor gray with the white, and on the next row black with the misty gray. So, and then as the blanket works up, these colors are always alternating with each other and stacked up. Really important to do that in order to get the shading just right. I've worked a very simple ribbed border around the end with black, and that is just front and back post double crochet. And so anyway, before we get started though, for sure, I want you to know that velvet is tricky to work with. This is probably, I've done dozens of projects with velvet, and one thing I've learned is to keep my tension really tight, and I have to go slow and pay very careful attention to my stitching. Here's an example of where I didn't. It can get away from you and you will have these loops that pop out. So I have to let that go. Oops, I pulled that even out more. That was not good. So this is one of my ends. The ends still pop out. I weave in the ends a lot and I knot them as much as I can. So if you're a brand new beginner to velvet, I would suggest you try a much smaller project first. Try our velvet twist headbands or something and get used to working with velvet, or simply work up this practice swatch that we're going to do together so that you can get a feel for how it works. This is hand wash only, so after I'm finished this blanket, I'm going to be just giving it a little dip into my tub. I would never put this in the washing machine, ever, ever, ever. No way. This is a luxurious blanket. I can see it laying on your sofa and for somebody laying underneath it, but I would treat these with care and caution. These aren't like a stadium blanket or something like that. This is luxurious and easy for those loops to come out. So, okay, let's get started. All right, so since this is a sample, I am going to work a multiple of 6 times 3. For the actual blanket, I should show you, this is each block is 12 stitches wide and 12 rows high. But for our sample, I'm just going to cut that in half and we're going to do 6 by 6. But if you're going to be doing this blanket, you will multiply 12 times any odd number, and I did 9. So there are 9 blocks of color across, and you want to do an odd number so that you begin and end with the same block of color. So say you want to make this even wider. This blanket as finished as a throw, it's a nice 60 by 40. But say you want to go even bigger, your next multiple would be 12 times 11. So keep that in mind, or go go smaller, 12 times 7, 12 times 5. So today, like I say, we're cutting that number in half just for time's sake. And I'm going to make my multiple 6 times 3. And then I'm adding 2 for the turning chain. So we will be working 20 base chains here. Okay, so I have 20 chains on my hook, and we'll begin in the 3rd chain from the hook by yarning over, inserting my hook, yarning over and pulling up a loop, and then pulling through all 3 loops. We are working 1/2 double crochet in each of the first, 6 stitches, starting in the 3rd chain from the hook. So we want a total of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here's number 6. Now go ahead and stop right there. Make a decision to leave your vapor gray to the back of your work, and now introduce your white. This is going to be very important for you to keep the yarn from twisting. I'm pulling through on that last step with the white. I'll go ahead and put that tail to the back, pull up my white. Now I'm going to work over the gray, carrying it along with me as I work 1/2 double crochet into the next 6 stitches. And on my 6th stitch, since I've decided to keep the white to the front, before I pull through with the gray, I'm going to wrap that to the front. Then I'll grab my tail of the gray and pull through. Very important to do that. Give that a tug. Now I'm carrying the white along. Now, if this, if this was the middle of the blanket, you would be carrying this white along. Keep in mind that when you do get to the last block of color, you have the option to not crochet over this white tail. You can definitely leave that behind because you really don't need it through this last block of color. But if you like to keep the whole weight of the blanket the same, then go ahead and carry it through. I tend to carry it through just because I also, I don't know, I get busy, or I just do. Keeps me on track. Okay, so now on this one, I'll still pull through with gray. This is the end of our blanket. Give this white a tug, a little bit of a tug. Make sure it's laying flat against everything that you just worked over. I'm going to chain 2 and turn. Now you can see a little bit of that white right there. Give it just a little bit of a tug. Make sure it's laying flat against the row. Now wrap the white around the back. Have it come along with you. Yarn over. Now here's what I like to do is I'm inserting my hook in between the 2 stitches and underneath this white, the carried white strand from the row below. That will help hide the yarn even further and get it tucked up nicely against the row. So as you get going, it's easier and easier to do that. It's kind of like your hook will just slip right in between those stitches. So I'm working all the way underneath all those 3 loops that the half double crochet makes, and even inserting my hook underneath that white that's going through the row below. And you can see the white that's being carried again. Give that a tug, make sure it's being pulled tight. Okay, gray to the back. I can go ahead and give that a little bit of a tug, not too much because you don't want it to pull in too tight. Now here we go. Start with the white. Ah, my word. And there's where I see that gray. I go ahead and insert my hook underneath it and get it tucked up underneath the row. Kind of keep this, you know, right on top or even somewhat pulled towards the front as you go. But I want you to recognize too that this very first row is honestly the trickiest row to do because you just don't have a whole lot to hang on to. Just keep working your swatch and you'll see as the blanket grows, it does get a little bit easier. Pull the white to the front before you pull through with the gray. Whatever color you choose to have be to the front of the work, just make sure you cross it over first. It really helps. Okay. You'll want to work 6 rows of this to make it a square. But say you have a different tension than me, you know, when it's not, and they look a little bit rectangle, if you go the full 6 rows, this is why a swatch is so important, to get your tension correct or whatever. Just make them square. You don't have to have them exactly 6 rows high. If 5 rows is enough, do 5. It worked out for me that on my big blanket, 12 stitches and 12 rows was the lucky number. Like I said, this is a practice swatch, so I am cutting the numbers in half so we can really get through this quickly. Okay, see, already it's getting easier because my rows have grown. Ah, that's my tail. There we go. Here's the white. Inserting my hook underneath that gray that's being carried along on the other row, as well as the tail that I'll be kneading through. Okay, one question I really did want to address that I keep getting over and over is, does this waste yarn? Personally, I feel like this is saving you yarn when working this style of a blanket. Of course, you're going to use more yarn for a gingham blanket because we're doing all these color changes. But so in referring to a gingham blanket, there's 2 other ways that you could do it, which would be to cut the yarn every time and weave in those ends. And I think that would be, you would not get a secure blanket that way. I think that it would be even riskier of having all those velvet ends come undone. Or you could do this bobbin style. I have seen people go ahead and wind up, you know, so you would have 9 little balls of color across the row, and then you would just switch colors. So if you do prefer doing it that way, feel free. But for me, I just enjoy carrying the yarn along, and I do recognize that you are going to use more because this is a gingham blanket. I mean, so I don't know. I hope that made sense. Okay. Look at that. It's growing. All right. I'm going to finish a little bit more of this, and then let's introduce those next colors. All right, it's time to introduce our next two colors. So remember, we want to keep the black above this vapor gray and the misty gray above the white. So we can go ahead and clip off both of these ends and make them really extra long tails. Weave those in, you know, at the end of the project, you'll weave those in. Just pull through with the new color. Okay, so now this first, we're still chaining 2 and turning. And we'll go ahead and just work one row of the black before we introduce the misty gray. Now, if you feel like you're seeing that white end down there, feel free to go ahead and crochet over it. Go ahead and pull that, the carried through yarn up against, just to make sure that it's not going to be seen or pop out. Here we are at this last stitch. Now it's time to decide. I think I'll keep the black to the front, grab my lighter gray color, and go ahead and pull through. Just takes a bit on this when you're adding yarn to kind of get everything tight and ready to go. So you can see that black that's down there. I'm going to insert my hook underneath that, in between the stitches. There's the dark gray, I mean, that I could see. And it'll just tuck right up underneath the row and do a little bit better job hiding. There's my black I'm carrying along. Lots to think about. That's why just with the velvet, I'm trying to think if I would say this is beginner friendly. It is if you can do a practice swatch and really get the hang of it. It really isn't hard once you start getting the hang of it, but I would say if this is your very first time doing gingham, probably try it with regular yarn first so you don't have to worry about all the slippery stitches and all of that that's happening here. Okay. So essentially, that is the technique that you do. We have a video, lots of videos on how to do that ribbed border that I will just link down in the descriptions if you're only seeing this on YouTube. Of course, if you see the pattern on our website, you'll have all the links to the border and everything. So the full pattern is written up on our website. The link is in the descriptions if you're only seeing this on YouTube. If you're on our website already, hopefully, you know, you can read through this whole pattern, and it's really, really fun to do. And oh my word, this blanket is incredible. Let me show it to you again. Okay, we've got that done. Here we go. So beautiful. Oh, so luxurious. This is for a friend of mine, my dear, dear friend who I've been friends with for a long time. And she has a lot of this buffalo check in her house. And I told her earlier this summer that I really wanted to make her a throw to go on her couch. So that's what who this is for. So anyway, thank you so much for coming by our channel. Oh, look, see, I still have got to go through and do a better job of, I wove in the ends the other night, but it looks like some still. Got to do some trimming. Trimming. Okay, handle this with care, hand wash only. All right, we do have other gingham patterns. If this is the first time you're seeing this on our channel, go check out our playlist on YouTube for all the gingham blankets. On our website, click menu heading, blanket patterns, and scroll down to gingham. We've probably have definitely well over 20 patterns using this technique now. All right, you have a nice day. Thank you.